Okay, that takes us to agenda item 9, Standards and Assessment Committee Report. We're going to turn it over to Chair Earl.
Thank you. Just letting you know, the first two items just primarily have to do with the packets, putting information in there related to the packets for different provisions. So the first motion before the board is that the board approve R277469, Instructional Materials Operating Procedures, Draft 2 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approves R277-469, Instructional Materials Operating Procedures, Draft 2 on second and final reading. Member Lear.
Thank you. I'm getting there. Hang on a sec. I have a couple of questions. And the first would be, there we go. On line 174, just make sure that's the right line, that somehow the draft didn't change in my absence. So I'm looking at this as these are curriculum packets. They're not state board standards packets. So line 170, if we back up a little bit, says the LEA approves the packet. So the LEA has approved the packet for use as an instruction material in accordance with, and that gives the statute and the statute. The board recommends the packet after it has been reviewed, consistent with the state instructional materials process. So even though it's a curriculum item, it suggests that the board, if it's just a pro forma review, great, but I don't like the suggestion that the board could overcall the LEA when it's a curriculum item. If that's not what's intended and you say that publicly, then that works.
Member Earl?
Oh,
Do that?
Yeah, please.
I can. So the difference is that like all of our other instructional materials that come through the instructional material process, it would be included with that we review in the fall and in, well, the spring, and then twice a year we do that. It would be included in that. And then if it's included in that, then a LEA may use that material without having to go through, they still have to go through whatever process to adopt materials, but they don't have to go through the vetting.
But it's also true that, and let me just shouldn't put words in your mouth, but it seems like the packets I'm familiar with, and things have evolved, I realize, but there are packets that LEAs and schools create all the time.
Right, so they can go through their process.
Whatever their process, whatever the LEA process
It allows
is.
that. This just allows, if an entity that has packets wants to submit them to us to go through our process, then they would be approved at the state level, just like any other instructional material.
Right, but not every instructional material is approved at the state level.
You are so right, but
Yes.
that's the point, is it's here because it's an option.
We can make it easy for them if they want that, or they can choose their own if they want that. Just clarifying that's what you're intending to say in this. And then that's good. Well,
Yeah, and Member Laird, this is also in accordance with the new packet law that got passed as well. So this is not something that they're
that's right.
intending to do. This is also part of code, which is why it's cited, for clarification.
thank you for reminding me.
Did you have another
Yes, I
question?
did. On line, oh no, that's a different rule. That's all I had on that one. Thank you.
Okay, no, we have no other comments, so if we can go back to the motion. Okay, the motion is that the board approves R277-469 Instructional Materials Operating Procedures, Draft 2 on second and final reading. Let's go ahead and vote. Okay, that motion passes with 14 in favor and 1 abstention from Member Bogus. Back to you, Chair Hymas.
Thank you, and back to Chair Earl.
Okay, the next motion is that the board approve R277717 high school course grading requirements, draft 2 on second and final reading. And once again, this was putting provisions in to make sure that there was the right credit that was or wasn't offered depending on how a packet was pursued.
Okay, thank you for that context. The motion before the board is that the board approves R277-717 high school course grading requirements, draft 2 on second and final reading. Member Lear?
Question on this similar related issue. Line 62. I believe the subject in that sentence is not accurate, not correct, and which sounds tedious, but it could be important because I'm thinking that we don't mean the LEA, we're thinking the student or the parent. And a student may not use, and I've got an amendment that I'll propose in a minute, but let me just make sure I'm understanding the concept. A student may not use the packet method or classify, and an LEA may not classify a packet as original credit to improve a previous course grade of a high school student. Is that more accurate in terms of what is intended?
I know you're saying to be quiet.
Did it go over not over your head, but
It did
around
not go over
you?
my head, but the LEA is who gives credit for packets. So I'm not, maybe,
And I guess
is it more nuanced than that? Is that what you're saying?
bit, yes. I feel like I'm not worried about the LEA use. The LEAs are clearly concerned that these packets will be used to replace a harder class or a more substantive class, maybe. And so I'm not worried about the LEAs misusing this, but I am thinking that a student could say, well, I'd rather do a packet than take this really hard physics class by this teacher who has a reputation. So I just want to make sure that both students understand, and as well as the LEAs who might be inclined, that it can't be used as original credit to improve a previous course grade.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, is that contrary to what you intended or what was intended by this change?
And I think that, go ahead, Chair Earl.
The intent was to adhere to the law, and that's why we even made an amendment related to that there to make sure it was very clear.
Is that
when it could and couldn't use.
Apparently, it wasn't clear to this person, but is that exact language out of the law? Or is it just?
I don't know. I could go back and look.
I just wondered if somebody else, there was I think there's also a statute that's wrong in there too. R277-705 was cited on, no, that's not true. Never mind on that one. I'll find that if I need to. But let me just propose an amendment. Does that make it easier?
Well, you can do whatever you want.
Well-
But the point, I guess, in this is that previous course grade, that's the
Right.
point, is you can't
Yeah.
use that packet
But
for
I
that.
also want to clear that the LEA is not the only actor in this situation. Sometimes a student might want to be using a packet to improve.
I believe they can't.
And that's what I think you intend. I think that's what the rule intends, but I just wanted to, I felt, say it a little more clearly.
So what's the motion?
Let me
Member
make the
Lear?
motion. I just was trying to make sure I understood. I would make the motion that line 62 on read instead of the way they read now. A student may not use a packet course as defined in R277-705, and I forget the subsection, -3, to improve a previous course grade of a high school student as described in R277-705. And we don't need that last as described in.
Keep an eye on the screen, Member Lear, to make sure
Okay.
that works.
Oh, but I also wanted to, I'm sorry, you're right, I wanted to get the LEA in there too. Sorry, let me try this one more time. It was late. An LAA may not use the packet method and an LAA may not classify a packet as original credit to improve a previous course grade of a high school student. Or classify a packet as original credit. I'd say designate. Can we change classify to designate while I'm making this amendment on the fly? To approve a previous course to improve a previous course grade of a high school student. And then that qualifying statute is kind of in the wrong place because it looks like it's defining high school students. So we could say consistent with, let's do that. Consistent with R2777053, parentheses 9. Now, did I make that too difficult to follow? Yeah. R277-705-3, parentheses 9.
Remember, Lear, I'm going to read it out, and then before we seek a second, I'm going to come back to you, okay?
Sure.
To make sure that it reads correctly. Then if we have a second, then we'll come back to you to speak to it. So the motion is that the board amend R277-717 by line 62, read, we'll fix that. So that the board amend R277-717, line 62, to read, an LEA may not use the packet method and an LEA may not designate the packet as original credit to improve something. Oh, it's back up. Okay. Okay, let me start over here.
And let me correct you right
Okay,
at
good.
the outset. A student may not use the packet method, and an LEA might not designate the packet as original credit. Well, I want it to be clear that a student is bound by this and the LEA is bound by this.
Okay. So, member Lear, is this what you want?
No. A student may not use, and an LEA may not designate the packet method. Now you got that said twice. So start right there and delete, starting where your cursor is. There may be an extra and in there too. A packet, A as opposed to the. Okay. That the student, that the board amend. A student may not use and an LAA may not designate a packet as may not designate a packet, may not use a packet after on the second line. And it could have been me that didn't say that right to begin with, so I'm not criticizing the editor. And an LAA may not designate a packet as original credit to improve a previous course grade. Yes, thank you. And if that was clear to everyone else to begin with, I feel like this adds clarity.
So let me state the motion. We'll see if we can get a second. The motion is that the board amend R277-717, line 62, to read, a student may not use a packet and an LEA may not designate a packet as original credit to improve a previous course grade of a high school student consistent with R277-705-3 Is that correct, Member?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Do we have a second? Member Lear, would you like to speak to that?
I think I did.
Okay. I've got staff on here as well. Okay, Member Kelly, go ahead.
I just don't see that a student has any authority or decision-making power to decide what shows up on their transcript, and so I don't know why we would need to designate that a student can't use the LEA is the one that's making the decision as to what goes on to that student's transcript and what's being sent out to colleges or what they're using, and so the LEA is the one that is the decision maker in terms of what is designated on a student's transcript. And so what they're saying, and I thought it was clear in the original that an LEA cannot use a packet to replace a previous grade in a similar in that subject matter. The issue that we've been struggling with that this is trying to solve is that a student will fail, we'll say, financial literacy class and then go do a packet for financial literacy, and that grade from the packet replaces the F that they got in the original class. And so I just don't see that a student has any authority or decision-making power to decide where credit goes. So
Member Lear, go ahead.
Site. My experience has been that could be true. What I've also understood from school administrators is sometimes, especially in smaller schools, there is a very hard class, a hard physics class, or something required for graduation, and the students say, I'm not taking that class. I'm going to do a packet to satisfy my physics credit. So I felt like this made it clear so that we give notice to the student and the parents to begin with. Don't think you can escape that physics credit by doing a packet. It's not going to happen. I also agree that the LEA has control of giving the credit, but I feel like giving notice to the student in advance is a fair and wise thing to do.
Member, okay, I can't keep getting into these back and forths, guys, but okay, Member Kelly.
no, I hear what you're saying, but if they still have that right. If a student chooses to take the physics class that was hard and then they fail that physics class and then they go do a packet, that packet can't replace that physics grade. But they can go take a physics credit online or packet wise and still earn the credit towards graduation and avoid that harder physics class and earn the credit through a packet. So there's other ways for the student to earn the credit. We're just talking about replacing a poor grade. So.
Member Earl.
Keep doing that. I apologize. And I can ask staff this just specifically, and actually it goes to the previous rule that we were asking all the questions on. The point of the previous rule is that an LEA, a charter school, well, an LEA, which would be charter too, district or charter, or the state board can approve packets that meet standards. So if your LEA says that packet isn't approved, so it isn't students here, it's just LEA. It's that simple. But I can ask is that the case? Can a student actually approve a packet and then ask for credit for it? Does staff have? Well, that's the only way they can
Who's
do
that
that
question
then.
to? Elise, go ahead.
Thank you. Elise Newey, Deputy Superintendent of Policy. These are great questions that we as staff are grappling with as well as we were drafting this rule. I think one of the difficulties that we are running into when drafting this rule is the law governs in HB 191, which is the bill that governs this area, says that it's really up to the LEA to approve the packet and to make it available. The sticking point that I think some of you are referring to is that students don't have to go through their LEA to do a packet. They can go elsewhere. And some of those places where they get those are not governed by this rule because they are not public LEAs under our laws. Then you run into another law that governs LEAs, and that's 53G 7206 that requires an LEA if a student shows up with a transcript from another entity. That LEA has to accept that transcript unedited. They can't do anything about it. So if that transcript does have a grade from another entity, the LEA has to take it. And our rule does not govern that instance in this place. So I think there's kind of a few different things that are going on that are being talked about. But as far as this particular rule and this particular law, it would apply to the LEA. But we have this other issue on the side, if that makes sense.
Thanks. I would speak against the amendment.
Thank you. Member Bogus.
Sorry, thank you. I am genuinely confused, and through the chair, I would like to ask Member Lear, isn't that the purpose of packets, to replace a grade? If you fail a class, you're getting a better grade in the course. I understand that you would have a physics course where you failed it, right? And then you'd have a second physics course where you have, but ultimately you need a physics course with a passing grade.
Credit.
So ultimately, that's what we're doing anyway. I'm just not tracking with how this does any good except cause confusion.
Not sure if that's a question directed at Member Lear or a comment.
Well, I really do want to understand what she's trying to do, but I'm genuinely confused as to what is going to happen here.
Member Lear, let's get your mic going.
What I misunderstood in reading this is I thought the intent was to not have packets, not let students escape certain courses with packets. Apparently, all it was intended was not let them retake a class with packets. So I realize this amendment is now on the floor and it's the board's, but I go back, say it the way you wanted to say it originally, and I still think that LEA being the noun in that sentence is awkward, and I also would believe that somehow we ought to give notice to students that they can't do this, because someone could look at it and say, oh, an LEA can't, but maybe I can. And so I'm still troubled by that. But if everyone else understands it as only replacing a grade or a credit, then I'd like to just go back and apologize for using the board's time, because it's just my lack of understanding, and we'll see if students read this more clearly than I do, or their parents.
Okay. With that, Member Brenton, do you still want to speak? You're welcome to. Yeah, I'm not telling you not to.
I think I just wanted to seek some clarification because I think there's confusion around. And so maybe Chair to Assistant Superintendent Newey, I believe the intent of the Tusher's bill in code is to not have packets be able to replace credit for a grade where they have already taken it, but also that if a packet is going to be for a grade, be taken for original credit, it has to go through a more rigorous approval process that the board approves, and we don't have that in place to approve any packets yet. Is that correct?
We do. The instructional materials could approve if submitted, if something's submitted.
Okay.
Nothing's been submitted.
So the motion before us is that the board amend R277-717, line 62, to read, a student may not use a packet and an LEA may not designate a packet as original credit to improve a previous course grade of a high school student consistent with R277-705-3(9). Let's go ahead and vote. That passes, or that fails unanimously with one absent. So we come back to the underlying motion, which is that the board approves R277-717 high school course grading requirements, draft 2 on second and final reading. Seeing no additional lights, let's vote. That passes unanimously with Member Davis absent. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Yes, our final one is the Prime Pilot Program, and the motion before the board is that the board continue and approve R277-721 Prime Pilot Program Draft 1 on second and final reading. And just so you know, this program is going away, but until we have something else in place, we don't have all the rules yet. We've got to continue this until then. So just kind of an awareness that this will come before us again and we'll be repealing it, but we have schools using this right now. So until there's the first credential program in place, we need to still have something in place legally.
Okay, thank you. The motion before the board is that the board continue and approve R277-721 Prime Pilot Program Draft 1 on second and final reading. Let's go ahead and vote. Member Kelly, what are you? We'll push it. Okay. Member Kelly's a yes. Sorry, we got that. Okay, that passes 13 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 absent. That member being opposed coming from Member Bogus. Board members, I'd like to take a break, but I'd like to do the superintendent's report first. Is that okay? Let's do a break. Okay, let's take 7 minutes if we could, Kelsey. Thank you, board members.